There is something you do every night that your oncologist almost certainly has never discussed with you. Not because it is unimportant, because the connection between it and cancer risk is one of the most striking and most consistently replicated findings in cancer biology over the past 2 decades. And yet it sits in a gap between disciplines, between sleep medicine and oncology, that most clinical practice has not yet adequately bridged. Every night, in the hours between when you close your eyes and when you open them again, your body initiates a set of biological processes that have a direct and measurable relationship with whether the cells in your body that are behaving abnormally, and there are always some, survive long enough to become a problem, or are identified and eliminated before they do. Those processes do not happen adequately when sleep is fragmented, insufficient, or chronically disrupted. And the consequences of that inadequacy accumulate quietly, without symptoms, over months and years, in ways that manifest, eventually, as increased cancer risk across multiple cancer types, documented across multiple populations, through multiple converging biological mechanisms. The simple daily habit I'm going to describe today is not a supplement. It is not an exercise protocol. It is not a dietary intervention, though diet plays a role in it. It is something you are already doing every night. The question is whether you are doing it in a way that activates the biology of cancer protection, or in a way that subtly and consistently undermines it. And for a significant proportion of adults over 50, the honest answer, based on what the sleep epidemiology and cancer biology literature shows, is the latter. I want to begin with the biology because the mechanism is what makes this conversation genuinely useful rather than another vague piece of advice about lifestyle. Understanding what is happening inside your body during sleep, specifically what is happening that is relevant to cancer biology, transforms sleep from something you fall into at the end of the day into something you actively protect, because you understand what is at stake. The first thing to understand is what your immune system does while you sleep and why it matters specifically for cancer. During waking hours, your immune system is occupied with a broad range of threats. Bacteria, viruses, environmental antigens, the inflammatory demands of physical activity and stress, the immune resources available for what researchers call immune surveillance, the continuous patrolling of body tissues for cells that are behaving abnormally, cells whose DNA has been damaged or mutated in ways that could eventually become malignant, are competing with all of these other demands. During sleep, and particularly during the deep non-REM sleep stages that dominate the first half of the night, a redistribution occurs. The sympathetic nervous system, the fight or flight branch of the autonomic system, reduces its activity. Cortisol, the stress hormone that, among its many effects, suppresses immune function, drops to its lowest levels of the 24-hour cycle. And in this window of reduced sympathetic tone and reduced cortisol suppression, specific components of the immune system that are most relevant to cancer surveillance become more active, more numerous in the circulation, and more functionally capable. Natural killer cells, the frontline soldiers of immune surveillance, the cells specifically tasked with identifying and eliminating abnormal cells, including early cancer cells, increase their circulating numbers and their cytotoxic activity during sleep. A 2019 study published in the Journal of Experimental Medicine found that sleep enhanced the adhesive capacity of key immune cells by activating integrins, the molecular surface proteins that allow immune cells to lock onto target cells and initiate the elimination process. The study found that during non-REM sleep, T cells showed significantly higher integrin activation than during waking hours, independent of other factors. Integrin activation is directly required for the anti-tumor immune response. Without it, immune cells can identify an abnormal cell but cannot effectively lock on and eliminate it. In practical terms, your immune system's ability to find and kill early cancer cells is meaningfully higher during adequate quality sleep than during waking hours. Sleep is not passive rest for your immune system. It is the period during which it performs some of its most critical cancer surveillance work. The second mechanism involves a hormone that most people associate primarily with sleep regulation, but that has a second identity as one of the most potent anti-cancer molecules the body produces: melatonin. Melatonin is produced by the pineal gland in the brain in the hours of darkness, in a production pattern governed by the circadian clock, the internal biological timekeeper that regulates the 24-hour rhythms of virtually every physiological process in the body. Melatonin production begins rising in the early evening, peaks in the middle of the night, typically between 2 and 4 in the morning, and falls to low levels by early morning. Most people know melatonin as a sleep-regulating hormone. What most people do not know is that melatonin has been studied for its direct anti-cancer properties for over 3 decades, through mechanisms that are entirely distinct from its role in sleep regulation. The oncological evidence for melatonin is extensive and consistent. Melatonin is a direct antioxidant, more potent than vitamins C and E in scavenging the free radicals, and reactive oxygen species that cause the DNA damage from which cancer mutations arise. It inhibits the production of estrogen by peripheral adipose tissue, radiation from cosmic rays, oxidative byproducts of normal metabolism, errors in DNA replication, chemical exposures from diet and environment. The total daily burden of DNA damage in a normal human body is estimated at tens of thousands of individual lesions per cell per day. The reason this constant barrage of DNA damage does not produce cancer in most people most of the time is that the body has an extraordinarily sophisticated DNA repair apparatus, a collection of enzyme systems that continuously patrol the genome, identify damage, cut out the damaged sections, and reconstruct the correct sequence using the complementary strand as a template. 8-OHDG is a direct byproduct of oxidative DNA damage and a widely used biomarker of unrepaired DNA lesion burden. People sleeping fewer than 6 hours per night showed significantly higher 8-OHDG levels than those sleeping 7 or more hours, consistent with the hypothesis that shorter sleep duration results in insufficient time for the DNA repair processes that should be clearing these lesions. The International Agency for Research on Cancer, the cancer research arm of the World Health Organization, classified shift work involving circadian disruption as a probable human carcinogen in 2007, based on the accumulated evidence, with the magnitude of elevated risk correlating with the duration and degree of circadian disruption. This is not theoretical. The carcinogenic consequences of disrupting the biological processes of the night are real enough that one of the world's leading cancer research bodies has formally classified that disruption as a probable cause of human cancer. The circadian regulation of DNA repair reflects the evolutionary logic of the 24-hour day. Expose the genome to damage during the metabolically active waking hours. Repair that damage during the restorative sleeping hours. The repair is supposed to keep pace with the damage. When sleep is inadequate or fragmented, the repair phase is shortened or disrupted, and the accumulated daily DNA damage is not fully resolved before the next day's exposure begins. Over time, the consequence of chronically incomplete DNA repair is an increasing burden of unresolved mutations, not all of them, or even most of them, in genes relevant to cancer, but some of them, and the ones that occur in the specific genes that regulate cell growth, cell death, and DNA repair itself are the ones that can initiate the multi-step process of carcinogenesis. Among its many effects, suppresses immune function, drops to its lowest levels of the 24-hour cycle. And in this window of reduced, vague piece of advice about lifestyle, understanding what is happening inside your body during sleep, specifically what is happening through multiple converging biological mechanisms. The simple daily habit I am going to describe today is not a supplement. The cells specifically tasked with identifying and eliminating abnormal cells, including early cancer cells, increase their circulating numbers. Melatonin. Melatonin is produced by the pineal gland in the brain in the hours of darkness in a production pattern governed by the circadian clock. What most people do not know is that melatonin has been studied for its direct anti-cancer properties for over 3 decades, through mechanisms that are entirely distinct from its role in sleep regulation, and reactive oxygen species that cause the DNA damage from which cancer mutations arise. It inhibits the production of estrogen by peripheral adipose tissue,